Welcome back to the Consecrated Life Project, where we talk about embracing your mission, living with purpose, living your purpose with faith and confidence, and learning to let God lead your life. Today, our guest is Leta Greene. I appreciate you so much. Thanks for joining us, Leta.
I'm happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Beautiful. Where did I even meet you? I think I read a Facebook post or something that she had written about her book that was getting published about the abuse, I believe it was. The second book.
Uh-huh. Right? Yeah, because I feel like we've only known each other for about a year. Is that right?
I feel like that, but I think it's only been like 2 months.
But then we also bonded, so who knows, right? Like we were just like, our first conversation was like, boom, 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 right?
Yeah.
So
I was like, once you're in heaven and you find that person,
right.
You're like, yep, we're in.
We go way back.
Way back to pre-existence here.
We just can't prove it here and now.
Morally, I've seen you once in person, right? Maybe twice.
It's all good, right? We love each other. That's about it.
Leta has so much light, and she is truly trying to live according to God and letting Him guide her in her journey, and it's been quite the journey. I know very little, but I'm excited to hear more, and I know that God brings the right people to this project to be able to share their stories. So I'm excited for you to be here. Thank you. Thank you. Give us about 2 minutes. 2 minutes, and I want you to explain where you're from. What does your life look like now, and what are you passionate about?
Okay, so I am from two extremes, truck stops in Provo, Utah. My dad owned a small trucking company, which means he was the truck driver, my mother was the other one, and we kids were the work crew setting up the mobile homes. So from that, it's just a logical step, of course, that I would become a beauty expert. Of course. And I say that with joking because,
of course,
right? Long story short, I've had 26 years in beauty. I'm a makeup artist. I've internationally trained people how to apply makeup, about ingredients and skincare, all that kind of stuff. And what led me to what I'm doing now is my husband got hit by a bus. Then he had a massive heart attack, died in my arms. I was then in a wheelchair, not because I was driving the bus or anything related, just very quickly. And, having some health issues with that. And then a pregnancy that I was on bed rest for 7 months. And our little girl, after 54 sacred days, died. At the end of that, God said, and I'm asking God for like, where's the mental health thing here? Like, give me possibly even asking for, give me the out.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I've done my hard things now. Thank you. And God said, build up the business and work on your professional speaking skills, to which I replied, what professional speaking skills? So lots of little miracles. And I'm very blessed to have a vibrant makeup business, a vibrant speaking career, and very well selling books. And I'm working on my third book. And most importantly, after 10 pregnancies, I was blessed with my 3 children. So I like to joke that I'm not really good at quitting.
Yeah. Well, that's good. I think.
Yeah.
And hopefully they were in heaven pulling for you.
Yeah. Well, I have 7 miscarriages, an infant loss, and I have 2 amazing living children that are just my greatest joy. And they're everything that I teach young people to be. And they make me look good. They're amazing people.
You have a son, right? Like 17-ish?
Yeah, I have a 17-year-old son who's 6'1", a little bit too cute, and a 14-year-old, almost 15-year-old daughter who is incredibly practical, and you will have to probably fill out an application form to ever date her, because she knows what she's looking for, and she's looking for someone like her dad. So, yeah.
So good. So good. Yeah, I think your video that I first saw of you had your son like poke in and said something about how he commented how awesome you were or something, and I was like, oh, every girl is like in line for him now.
They're not terribly shy, those kids. I don't know where they got it from.
Probably comes into teens, right?
Yeah, it's probably their dad. Yeah, who knows?
Right. But can you tell us the story of kind of how you came to find your mission and purpose? You think you kind of just covered it in that quick synopsis, but is there anything else?
Yeah. I have speeches that I talk about this with the youth, of how I didn't think I had any talents. I didn't think, really for most of my life, I think the thing I was the most proud of, my greatest talent that I could have put my finger on, is that I survived, that I had gone through some really hard stuff. And at 18, I actually thought that the hardest things I'd ever had to face were done. And outside of the emotion of grief, that's true. My childhood had some intensity to it. There was several forms of abuse. And so, yeah, there were hard things, right? But those also helped mold me. And for whatever reason, I was given the tools, the inspiration, the guidance, the right people to say certain things to me that got me to where I could be a functional human. And most people for most of my life have just overlooked me. Yeah. And then with those events that we just talked about, suddenly people were like, whoop. And I didn't know what to do with the attention. And I still kind of, I mean, when people put me up on a pedestal, it's very uncomfortable to me because I was 36 before anyone had paid any attention to anything I said. And so I was very comfortable living the life that I was living. I was living a great life and I love that life. And there's some days that I'm like, can I go back to that life? Because there's a lot of work and pressure being a persona, right? And, I have to live that. I'm accountable to that. And yeah, but again, not my choice. It was God's purpose and mission. And he's communicated that to me very clearly. And I haven't always agreed with his reasoning. I would have preferred 5 kids. But this is the life that I have. And this is the life that he is giving me to teach me the most. And for me to give back the fact that I'm good. I'm great. Life is vibrant and amazing. And it's about living with purpose, on purpose, and following God. You're going to get whatever you follow. You're going to get that from them. So if you follow some guru and they have a messed up interpersonal life, well, it's going to bleed over into their advice. So picking good mentors, picking God's a good one.
Yeah, for sure. Totally agree. I keep fighting myself on that one of, okay, I don't want to worry about the philosophies of man, but I know you also give people good information and then you send them to me and say, okay, work with this person because they have what I need. And
right. So because really we do need that. There are things that happen interpersonally when there's eyeball to eyeball time. We do need that. And yeah, at the same time, we have to always put it in line with the ultimate mentor. Right. Mm-hmm. And, I have several stories and circumstances in my life where I'm like, wait a minute, I'm not okay. Wait, backing out as quickly as I recognize that I'm following someone who's not in line with my ultimate purpose, which is to live with God again and to be standing before God confidently. Yeah. Because Jesus Christ is taking care of the failures and the mistakes and the mishaps and the sin that has happened upon me, right? He's taking care of that. And I'm doing my very best to just keep shoveling it to him, right? But the question is, will we stand confidently before God? And that, people will say to me a lot, like, Leta, you're fearless. And like, where'd you get that from? Well, lack of fear is a psychological problem. It's a psychosis. But what they're really saying is, you're not fearing the things I'm fearing. And it's true. I don't fear if you like me or not. I've gotten hate mail for, my second book. How dare I talk about healing and, different things. I don't mean to be callous, but that's not who I'm trying to please. The people who are both in love with me and the people who don't love me. That is not who I'm trying to please. I have a daughter that stands next to God, and I don't want her to see her mother lacking. I want her to see me trying so hard. So I fear disappointing God, and fear is not even the right word, but that's what my focus is. And that makes me fearless as to the opinions of men.
It's more your why than the fear, maybe. You're like, it's,
yeah, I'm not quite sure.
Why, but it's like, my why is to be like God, to do what he wants.
Right. So I'm not quite sure what the word is on that, but when they're saying like, you're not afraid of this. Why are you not afraid of this?
Yeah.
Because I buried a kid. Yeah. And I want to be a good mom to both my living and my children live with God. Yeah. That's my purpose.
Yeah. And really just to say, you know what? It's okay. God's got it. My job is to show up and do what he tells me. If I do that, I'm good.
Right? Yeah.
Show up, do my best, make sure
and sometimes I'm like, too much work.
Yeah, I can relate.
sleep more.
But somehow, if you show up and do what he says, even when you feel like it's too much work and it's too tired, it always works out better. And you're like, oh, thank you. I'm glad I listened.
Exactly.
Always works it out better.
Yeah.
Okay. Was there any point in your path where you felt like this was your moment of commitment? When you were like, okay, yeah, I'm following, I'm doing what God says. And then he was like, okay, do these really hard things. And you're like, I'm in 100%, no matter what, whatever you tell me, I'm in.
Okay. I mean, there's a lot, but there's one that comes to my mind that might help some of, your viewers. I'm pregnant with my daughter. I have a degenerative hip, full spinal arthritis, but they don't know that yet. And I'm muscular enough that I'm still walking. So if had I not been walking, that would have cleared it up for them. But every step I was pinching nerves throughout the whole entire left side of my body. So sciatica times magnitudes. And I mean, I'm literally walking on a sprained hip, if you know what I mean, like just to kind of put it in layman's terms. And, day after day, my husband is doing an internship in DC. I'm living with friends in New Hampshire because we couldn't find a doctor in DC, which is a whole other miracle story that I have these friends that are taking me in, living in a boys' dorm of an elite private school. I know, like how random, right? And I'm in a twin bed with my 2.5-year-old son that I kept asking his kindergarten teacher, are you sure he doesn't have ADHD? Ended up being Tourette's. So he just moves and kicks and a lot. And I'm pregnant and I'm in pain constantly. And I basically wasn't able to sleep well for months. And I'm laying there holding my kid. And I just thought, that edge of, I'm like, let's not be so awesome. Let's just let us be crazy. And I heard a voice, familiar voice. Well, then who's going to take care of your kids? And I realized that I was not going to do that to my children. And I knew what that felt like to have a parent, not stories I want to tell publicly, but I knew what that felt like. And that same choice was made differently when holding my 2.5-year-old son when I was 2.5. And I chose to not step off that cliff. And eventually when grief pulled me off that cliff, I discovered that I had wings through the atonement. But we cannot ever willingly step off of it. We have to hold on. And mental illness and depression and manic, all of that, those are real feelings. But there is a moment that we are offered a hand, or moments. And that was a moment that I was offered to not step off the cliff. And it was hard. It did not get easier, but that little girl that I was pregnant with is 14 years old now. And now it's much easier because now I know a lot more than I did. But I know that if I'd stepped off that cliff then, my children would be the ones paying the price. And you can always come back, but you can't make up for all the same of lost time and lost relationships. Those are my kids' developmental years. It can always be made up, but it can't at the same time. You know what I'm saying? So I didn't step off the cliff.
Thank you. I'm glad you didn't.
Yeah. I think my kids are too, but I think that's a more common moment than most people are willing to talk about.
Yeah. There's a lot. On more and more all the time that have experienced it. So I'm definitely not alone. Okay. What opposition or resistance have you faced and how do you get through it? If there's any specific story that sticks with that one.
Yeah.
Go with whatever stories God gives you to share.
When I did my first speech, I turned to my husband and I said, and it was in a church format, like the first speech I did after I knew God wanted me to be a speaker. And basically I stood up in front of, almost everyone I knew, at that point, you know what I mean? Not everyone, but get what I'm saying. And, bore witness that, Jesus Christ was enough to get us through the death of our child and all of that. And turned to my husband. I was like, we can't get divorced now. And he was like, My husband's electrical engineer, patent attorney. He's like, very, like analytical. He's like, were we thinking about that? And I was like, well, no, but we as a couple, because what I might have been the mouthpiece, but it was we as a couple. I just went up and just basically called out Satan. And I just declared him an enemy publicly. And we're now an example. And if we mess this up, Satan gets to go, see, couldn't be sustained. And Satan, he's not a fan of me.
That's the way to be. I would hope that he's not a fan of any of us.
Yeah. But, whatever he views as love, he has that for us. And that's a good reminder that there are people who may say they love us, but they may not define love as God defines it.
True. Beautiful. Do you have any moments when you were going one way and you thought, okay, I've got this, I know where I'm supposed to be headed, and then God's like, nope, change, go this way?
Yeah, I wanted 5 kids. It's not what I got. I mean, I didn't get pregnant 10 times because I was not trying to, become a mom. And adoption, we were told by adoption agencies that we were not likely to be chosen. I do have an autoimmune, and though I'm awesome and I live a very, very busy life, it is there. It is in my blood. They don't like seeing it. And the only way for me to get kids is stealing them. And there's that criminal thing is to have them. And I was so fixated on trying to fill out my family that when he was like, no, this is what you're doing. It was hard for me to accept. It was hard for me to be like, oh no, I want to make you a speaker and want you to have all this influence. And some people might really want that. But for me, it was very hard to accept that what I did for a living had the same eternal consequences that would compensate me for having 5 children. I couldn't reconcile that. And it frankly took me 9 years to come to peace with that. Because I don't want to be famous.
Relate to what? Okay. Can't I just stay home and play with my kids?
Yeah, I love being a wife and mom. I mean, I really do. I love that life. And I worked hard on me to do that well.
And it matters.
Yeah, it does matter, and it has eternal significance. And so I never want anyone to look at what I'm doing and go, oh, what I'm doing is a mom, wiping up, throw up and that kind of stuff. I'm not saying I love those days, but that doesn't have meaning. It does. This is just something that God wants me to do to help other people to do what they're doing with joy and more fulfillment and more perspective. Because people listen to someone who's buried a child about the importance of being a joyful, happy, fulfilled individual. And I primarily speak to women. And so I feel like, I there's an irony in that. There's an irony. So like I said, it took me time to get to being okay with that. But
thank you. Share a time when it might have looked like you failed to the world and what you learned through that. Like in the eyes of what people think success is.
Well, you always pass failure on your way to success, Mickey Rooney says. And repeating the same thing over and over again is the definition of insanity. So I like to joke that I'm insanely successful. I think that usually true success usually does look like failure a lot, most of the time, when you don't know where it's going. From my pregnancies to I walked away from a $936,000 speaking contract. And people are like, why would you do that? And I'm like, because they wanted me to be on the road, 4 different cities, 4 times a week. That means maybe I'm home once a week. And, that looks like a failure. I could have made easily $1 million, in 1 year, but it's just money.
Love that. It's a beautiful story for that one. Do you have anything else you feel called to share with us today about your journey with God and how he guides you?
Like I kind of said earlier that, he's a great business coach. He's a great coach and all of the things. And, you know, from the variability that I have to walk to the way my brain chemistry works, you know, I do have a form of PTSD because of, you know, they say I probably had it by the time I was 8. You know, so when I hear people be like, oh, I can't, I have anxiety, I'm like, no, that's just letting you know an area you have to grow your brain in. Right. I mean, let's just say for a second, you don't believe in God, right? Just the very chemistry of what is happening in your brain is just saying, I mean, if I was hemorrhaging from my stomach, you wouldn't be like, oh, you're right, we should just let you be there and do whatever you want to do and just kind of bring you more food, right? You got to go to a doctor. You got to do something for that injury. So when you have a brain injury because of trauma or because, you know, you have a mental health issue, well, that's your homework. That's the thing you got to work on. It's not I don't believe in getting passes to not doing. Are certain things harder? Absolutely. I don't feel like I have had anything that has been easily given and handed to me. The magic, oh, boom, 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 boom. No, I don't. Everything I've done has been hard work, hard. You know, sometimes I'm like, when am I going to get like a, you know, it's going to be easier, right? Something just happens. And there's so many people who say, oh, you know, I don't even, you know, I did this and this and this, and then boom, it just happened. And I'm just wildly successful. And, you know, in anything, I have to work at everything I do. And I have to take care of my mental health. But, you know, having an issue, having a problem is not an excuse for a pass. It's giving you your very specific assignment. Learn all you can about anxiety, learn all you can about PTSD, learn all you can about depression, all of these things, learn all you can about them. And then when you see it slipping, oh, you got tools. You got things to employ to use. And, you know, I'm a confidence expert. You know, right? This is one of the things that I do. And it's like money and happiness and all of that. It's not something we possess and put on a shelf. It's something we have to keep investing in. So I just don't believe in passes. I don't think that's what God sent his son for. The whole point was that we could grow and become more and better. And I think that when we say, oh, I can't because of this, we're denying the atonement.
Yep. And so many times people go to that scripture of, you know, God won't give us more than we can handle. But if you read the
Yeah,
whole,
he will.
he won't give you more than you
Absolutely.
can handle with him. And so it's with him you can handle it. Not
Right.
alone you can handle it.
The girl prostituting her body for meth is clearly dealing with more than she can handle.
Yeah.
Clearly. And, you know, back, you know, in the Bible, it's, you know, they're like, who sinned, the blind man or his parents? No one sinned. We have an earthly body. Hello. Right. It's, you know, it's so that God could show his glory through healing him. But that blind man learning things, those parents had to learn empathy and charity, the community. I mean, it's all of the hard is here to teach us. And if I look back on my children's life, I would love to erase the memory in my daughter's mind of seeing her dad's injuries after he got hit by a bus. She was 2 years old and it is in her mind. I would love to take that away from her. But you know what? That might also be where she got the tender gift of love and empathy and healing that she has maybe been spiritually given, but also enhanced because she knows what pain feels like. She's seen it, right? It is our hard things that make us, not just make us worthy, but make us brave enough to stand before God and say, I want in. I want in. Because it says we are the ones that shrink. God does not shrink from us. We are the ones that shrink. And it's the hard things that we're going to be like, no, I went through all of that. And he advocates for me, mentioning Jesus Christ. And we're going to look right in God's eyes and be like, I demand entrance. That's how we get in. Not by being like, well, you know, I've lived a really good life and No. We all get the same wages if we show up to the vineyard, from, the beginning of the day or the end of the day. It's those of us that say, I want payment, that are going to get that reward. And how else do we get that if we haven't been through hard?
Beautiful.
I just kind of go off.
Okay, with all of that, Leta,
You're like, you let me I get to talk about God. I'm like, well, then get ready, people.
well, we surely did. But there is always hope. No matter what hard you've been through, you can say, God, I'm in, guide me, and he'll do it.
Yeah. And he's not going to necessarily tell you what the next step is, So, he's not necessarily going to do that. Right? Sorry, I thought I turned off my phone. And, he's not going to clear every step, just perfectly lit. We have to step into the unknown. And that looks like darkness, but it's not. It's just the unknown.
Yep. Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you so much. If there's anyone who is connected with you and they're like, hey, I want to get to know her, I want to be on her email list, I want to read her books, where do they find you?
Well, I think the easiest way, so I know kind of where they came from, is just have them to, we'll just put in the show notes that they can text in to, CLP, we'll put the number and everything. And then, I'm Leta Greene. I'm easy to find, Leta, green, like the color with an E on the end. Having a unique name makes me uniquely easy to find. And, I'm a speaker, I'm an author. I have 2 best-selling books, How to Embrace Your Inner Hotness. It's a book on confidence, 15 steps to live a more joyful and happy life. And then Love Me Too, my response to the Me Too movement, saying that we are victims. And I guess you guys already got a little hint about how I feel about claiming and maintaining the victim card.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. So we will add in the show notes, in the comments, and wherever this video you happen to find it, a way that you can connect with Leta. So thank you so much. And we hope
Thank you for having me on, Livia.
Keep trusting God. He's got to.
Oh, yeah, he does.
Okay. Bye for now.
Bye.